Do you want to know how to discipline an autistic child for biting? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, and education, all through the lens of the principle of self-government. And in this video, we are talking about stopping the biting. In this video, we're going to talk about why autistic children choose to bite. I'm going to share a story from a family who was able to properly discipline an autistic child for biting and make some great success there, and then also talk about what you can do in order to discipline an autistic child for biting, how to do it in a way that makes you feel good and solves the problem too. So why do autistic children sometimes choose to bite? There actually can be multiple different reasons for that. One reason can be just sensory processing. Sometimes when a person is overloaded and they're feeling overstimulated, sometimes to bite something, to pull something, to grab something, to play with something can help their sensory processing to regulate just a little bit. So that's one reason that can happen. Usually when someone is saying, I want to discipline someone for biting, it's not because they're just biting on some sort of like piece of fabric or something to try to help them process better sensory-wise, but it's because they're getting angry and their processing is, going out of control. So is this because of overstimulation? Well, it can be, but there are some other factors that we need to bring into the conversation, and that is that sometimes it's actually a learned behavior too. So sometimes some autistic children don't express themselves well. They struggle to find the right words. They struggle a lot to find the right tone when they're experiencing some anxiety in a moment. And so what will happen is because they want somebody to not do something, or they want to get somebody's attention to make sure that they're understood, they might resort to pain, which that's where the biting comes in. They might just go to someone and bite them because they're frustrated, especially when they're younger and they're autistic. This is going to be happening. But even some older people will resort to that because they don't know how to express themselves properly. Well, then this can just turn into a negative behavioral habit. So it could be that the autistic child that you're working with just has a habit. It could also be that because somebody didn't proactively teach them how to get attention, how to get understood when they needed additional understanding, that they resorted to a bad behavior problem. Nobody ever fixed that because of their autism, and so then now it is a behavioral habit. No matter why your autistic child is resorting to biting to be understood or to solve their problems, we do need to correct that behavior. That is a negative behavior. It's not going to help them in the future. Even if we're compassionate and understanding about their sensory needs or their inability to communicate perhaps, we still need to make sure that we teach them the right way to communicate. We need to teach them how to get understood without power struggling with another person. Because as soon as they start biting, they are escalating a power struggle to another level. This is not going to help them. In the long run, it's going to hurt relationships. They are not going to get the things that they need because other people are going to feel attacked. Not everybody in their life is going to be understanding and say, oh, that must be because you're autistic. For many years, I took in treatment children. They were all between the ages of 12 and 18. I did therapeutic treatment care, which was a type of foster care for troubled teens. Multiple of the teens that came to my home had ASD, so they were autistic. And they also oftentimes had other things too, like ADHD and ODD. There were also levels of trauma that they were dealing with. And so some of them had some pretty extreme behaviors. But there was one thing I recognized right at the beginning as I was helping these youth, and that was that I needed to be understanding about their processing and where they were at, where they were coming from, but not to the point that I didn't correct the problems. It is possible to be a little bit too understanding and then not solve problems. And then it ends up hurting the child because you're not preparing them for the future. So what I decided to do was make sure that everybody understood the baseline skills of self-government. Now, if you've subscribed to this channel before, then you know that I teach the skills and principles of self-government here on this channel. We teach things like how to follow instructions, how to accept no answers and criticism, how to accept consequences, how to disagree appropriately. Those 4 basic skills, if you learn the skill sets to each of those, takes care of 99% of your behavioral problems. When you're working with an autistic person, it's good to be proactive and to proactively teach them ahead of time the skills that they need for success, and then proactively teach them also how you will correct them when they aren't using their skills. So if I have an autistic child who needs to tell me something or tell another person something, then probably one of the biggest skills I'm going to work on teaching them is how to disagree appropriately so that they can properly be understood. To disagree appropriately, the person learns 7 steps. You look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body. Say that you understand the other person's point of view. Share your point of view. Listen to what they have to say okay, and drop the subject. When a person learns to disagree appropriately with everyone, siblings, friends, teachers, parents, this decreases their anxiety because it increases the predictability of the outcome of that interaction. They know someone will listen if they tell them, hey, may I disagree appropriately with you? Or I need to disagree appropriately with you. Now suddenly they know the person who's been trained to understand that language will listen to them. Now they don't need to be as worried and as anxious. And now they can take the time that they need to use the words. And maybe even as a parent, I might give them the words that they're looking for in order to express themselves properly to me in that moment. But it's just taking that moment to pause and say, let's use one of our skills. When I worked with troubled youth, there was one in particular who did have sensory processing issues. She was always biting on a piece of fabric. This was so that she could try to keep herself regulated. We did want her to try to overcome that a little bit because she was 17 years old and she was going to launch out into the world, getting jobs. She couldn't be chewing on something that had her saliva on it all the time. We needed to teach her some other skills. So when she came to our home, she was biting on that. When she would get frustrated, she would sometimes want to bite on herself or bite on other people as well. At age 17, this is a very young, very juvenile skill. It's not going to be socially acceptable. It's not going to help her succeed in life. So we did need to correct her every time that she was doing that biting. And we told her that there were certain times that she could use the biting on a rag for self-regulation and other times when she would have to give herself a no answer. So I hope you understood that terminology matched one of those 4 basic skills that I talked about earlier, accepting a no answer. So she learned how to accept a no answer from us, and then she also learned how to give herself a no answer and follow through. But if she didn't, then we were ready to do a proper self-government correction. So there are other videos on this channel related to corrections. There's one that I recommend that you go to next, and it will go into some of the steps for how to do a proper teaching self-government correction. It's a calm correction that hits at the heart as well as the skills and helps develop skills within the child. Go to the class on here called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. Click on the link to that video. I'll see you there.